Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the centuries-old fog surrounding one of the most chilling, unsolved mysteries in American history. I'm Alex, and with me is Jordan.
Hey everyone. We've all heard the ghost stories about the lost colony of Roanoke, right? But today, we are tossing out the folklore and looking at the hard, physical evidence. We're talking modern archaeology, cutting-edge tech, and even biology to finally answer a question that's baffled historians for literally 400 years. What actually happened to these people?
So, Jordan, put this into perspective for us. How do 115 people just vanish without a single drop of blood?
It's wild, Alex. Okay, imagine you're Governor John White. It's August 1590, sweltering hot. You step off a small boat after being away for 3 agonizing years, delayed by a literal war with Spain. You're expecting to hear blacksmith hammers, people chatting, your granddaughter Virginia Dare laughing. She was the first English child born here, by the way. But instead, suffocating silence. You walk up, and the fort is completely empty. The wooden walls are upright, gates unbroken, no blood in the dirt, no signs of a struggle, no freshly dug graves. 115 men, women, and children are simply gone.
To understand this pristine crime scene, we need a quick timeline of Sir Walter Raleigh's attempts to colonize the New World, leading right up to that eerie discovery. Right, so in 1584, the English explored the area and brought back these glowing reports. The next year, 1585, they set up a military colony, but that was a total disaster. Starvation, hostility with the locals, complete failure. So in 1587, they pivot. They send an agricultural colony of families led by John White, but supplies run desperately low, so White sails back to England and gets trapped by the Spanish Armada. By the time he finally makes it back in 1590, boom, everyone's vanished. And the only clue left behind in this desolate, quiet fort was a single word, right? Exactly. The word Croatoan carved in really clear capital letters on a wooden entrance post. Now here's the kicker. White and the colonists had a secret agreement. If they had to leave in distress or under attack, they were supposed to carve a Maltese cross above their destination. But there was no cross. And the word itself? It's a 16th century Algonquian term that ethnologists believe means talk town or council town. It was literally the only voice speaking from the silence. For generations, this story has been a total blank canvas for wild speculation and supernatural folklore. Oh, absolutely. People blamed Spanish massacres or hostile curses. You've even got these crazy internet rumors claiming that Croatoan, spelled backwards, Naudator, was some ancient slang for death. People tied it to Edgar Allan Poe's final moments or even Amelia Earhart's journal. But history is rarely a ghost story. As we'll see, the reality is way more grounded. We're talking famine, scientific anomalies, deliberate migration, and just the sheer human will to survive against the brutal reality of nature. Which brings us to modern archaeology, which is actually actively dismantling this whole ghost story. Yeah, Scott Dawson from the Croatoan Archaeologist Society makes such a great point here. He says the whole vanished without a trace angle was basically a marketing campaign started in the 1930s to sell tickets to a symphonic drama. The empirical, physical evidence we're pulling out of the ground today reveals the desperate human survival that actually occurred, proving they were never truly lost to begin with. Okay, but before we can track exactly where they went, we have to ask the fundamental question. What catastrophic event drove them out of their homes in the first place? Why dismantle a perfectly good fort? Right, to figure that out, we have to look past the old historical documents and use modern science to decode the actual environmental conditions of the late 16th century. And the answer to that question comes down to this massive number, 800. What does that mean, Jordan? Well, researchers looked at centuries-old bald cypress trees along rivers in the Tidewater region. These trees are basically nature's hard drives, recording climate data in their rings. And the data revealed something absolutely terrifying. When the colonists arrived, they walked right into the most extreme growing season drought in 800 years. So this wasn't just a dry summer, no. This was a monumental climactic disaster. Between 1587 and 1589, this mega-drought completely parched the soil. It devastated the food supply, not just for the English, but for the native Algonquian tribes they were relying on for trade. So imagine this. Your food runs out, your leader is missing, and the environment is turning utterly hostile. This disaster literally forced them to shed their English colonizer identities and become refugees just to stay alive. So we know why they left, but where did they go? Surprisingly, the modern breakthrough didn't happen in the dirt. It happened in a museum back in 2012. Yeah, a researcher at the British Museum was looking at La Virginia parts, which is this really delicate, sun-faded watercolor map drawn by John White himself. They used these specialized backlighting techniques, stuff usually used to uncover erased sketches, and spotted something absolutely incredible, hidden right in plain sight. Underneath a tiny, completely innocuous patch of paper glued to the map, the backlighting revealed a hidden symbol, the unmistakable outline of a four-pointed square fort. And what makes this so mind-blowing is the location. It was drawn exactly 50 miles inland, near the Chowan River. Suddenly, a note from John White's own journal, where he mentioned the colonists' plan to move 50 miles into the Maine, made perfect sense. White probably patched over the map to hide their relocation spot from Spanish spies. It was literally a hidden blueprint for survival. Armed with this map, archaeologists from the First Colony Foundation shifted their search deep into the Carolina mainland to areas they called Site X and Site Y. And it totally paid off. Using ground-penetrating radar, they found fragments of English utilitarian pottery, specifically this greenish ceramic called Surrey Hampshire borderware. But Alex, the coolest part is what they didn't find. There were 0 17th century clay tobacco pipes. Later, Jamestown settlers loved these pipes, so their sites are covered in them. The total lack of pipes is an undeniable chronological fingerprint, proving these artifacts are strictly Elizabethan. So for sure, a group of Roanoke colonists moved inland. But Jordan, the amount of material at sites X and Y looks like a smaller satellite camp, right? Maybe an extended family, but definitely not all 115 people. Exactly. With the physical evidence piling up, historians realize the colony didn't just vanish, it fractured. They split up. So to figure out where the rest of them went, we have to go all the way back to that original wooden carving at the abandoned fort. Right, the word Croatoan. It wasn't a cryptic riddle or an ancient curse at all, not even close. It was a geographic location, a literal signpost. Croatoan was the 16th century name for Hatteras Island, located about 60 miles south. But more importantly, it was the home of the Croatoan tribe. They had a really strong, friendly relationship with the English, mostly thanks to Manteo, a native translator. The colonists were telling John White exactly where they went for help. So the evidence really points to a split migration. Driven by this mega drought and total starvation, they fractured to survive. Yep, one group hid in the forested mainland near the Chowan River, leaving behind that Elizabethan pottery we mentioned. But a substantial group sought sanctuary on the coast, at Hatteras Island. And the evidence there is fascinating. Researchers are finding 16th century English tools, rapier hilts, and copper, all mixed intimately inside native refuse pits. And the ultimate archaeological smoking gun they found on Hatteras Island is hammer scale. Oh, yeah. Excavators literally found buckets of it. If you don't know, hammer scale is a byproduct of blacksmithing. It's the flakes of metal that fly off when iron is forged. Native American tribes in this region did not work metal like that, so finding massive amounts of this industrial waste right alongside native pottery, it proves the English weren't just visiting. They were living, working, and forging metal inside the native village for decades. You know, for generations, local native descendants insisted their oral histories were true. They always said the English never vanished. They simply assimilated into the tribes. And for centuries, mainstream academia just brushed those stories off as romantic folklore. But they were wrong. The recent 2024 and 2025 excavations have completely vindicated those ancient stories. Finding English and Native American remains in refuse pits side by side paints such a vivid picture. Far from being wiped out, these desperate colonists dismantled their fort, packed up, and merged two distinct cultures. They intermarried and adapted to indigenous ways of life to survive the New World. But archaeology is just one piece of this massive puzzle. To absolutely prove this incredible tale of integration beyond a shadow of a doubt, researchers turn to the ultimate historical archive, the human body. Right, genetic genealogists launched the Lost Colony DNA project. They're basically using modern biology as a time machine to find the ghosts of Roanoke living among us right now. By analyzing Y chromosomes, mitochondrial, and autosomal DNA, researchers have linked dozens of modern local families to specific 16th century English genetic markers. It's literally amazing. one of the craziest cases involves a participant they call Mr. Brown. His DNA perfectly matches a Tudor-era English lineage, and it gets better. His genetic signature matches the exact surname of two known Roanoke colonists from the original 1587 passenger manifest, Henry and William Brown. Finding this direct biological bridge across 400 years is a breathtaking confirmation of the assimilation theory. So, as we wrap up this explainer, we want to leave you with this thought. The story of Roanoke isn't some spooky campfire tale about people vanishing into thin air. It is a profound story about adaptation.
Exactly, Alex. When their empire abandoned them and nature turned against them, these pioneers survived not by conquering, but by embracing the people and the land around them. We've spent 400 years looking for a lost English colony when we really should have been looking for the very first American family. Knowing that their bloodlines and futures were woven directly into the fabric of the indigenous world, how does that change the way you view the very dawn of America?